Welcome to the Corridor Wealth. I'm James Yoakum, your host. Today we're going to be discussing Trump's new appointment to the IRS as IRS Commissioner, and it's throwing a lot of people for a loop. And I'm here to explain why I think this is probably a very, very good pick, why it is outside of the traditional norms, and why it should instill a greater trust in the IRS once this gentleman is essentially in and running the IRS for us. So who is this man? This man is Billy Long, and this is Billy Long.
10 and a quarter, 1 and a quarter, 1 hands and about 2 and a quarter. Yep, 2 and hands and about 3, equal to bomb 300. Yep, 3 and a quarter. Yep, 3 and a quarter now, half, 3 and a half.
This is your IRS Commissioner, your new IRS Commissioner right here.
1 and a quarter, 4 and a half. Yep, 4 and a half.
Mr. Billy Long.
5 and a quarter, 5 and a half. I yield back.
Now, our new IRS Commissioner is heckling a heckler because he is a ex-auctioneer, believe it or not, from the state of Missouri. This man had never graduated college. He is a business and tax advisor, and he was an ex-senator from the state of Missouri. Now, if you're not too familiar with who the current IRS Commissioner is, it's Danny Werfel. Danny Werfel was appointed by the Biden administration, but prior to the Biden administration, Danny Werfel was put in place temporarily by the Obama administration as somebody to serve to stop the weaponization of the IRS. There was a few cases back in 2012 and 2013, and even prior to that, where the IRS was investigating conservative businesses, conservative nonprofits, entities like the Tea Party and so forth, and they were expending a lot of efforts on that at the behest of the current administration, whether or not that was directly from the president or from people who were within the administration, such as the State Department, DOJ, or other things. One thing to remember is that everybody in Washington, D.C. is a part of the same bird, so to speak, we'll say. You've got the left wing and you've got the right wing. It's all the same bird. But an interesting thing to note about Mr. Danny Werfel is that he is entrenched in Washington, D.C. He is entrenched in essentially high-level politics and also business consulting, which a lot of these political people and congressmen and lobbyists are all in this together. They are all there to work with each other, and they do have this buddy-buddy type relationship. Mr. Danny Werfel was with the Boston Consulting Group for many years. You can see how these relationships play out in just looking at some of their LinkedIns and also some of the business contracts that have been given. For instance, there have been positions at the Internal Revenue Service under Danny Werfel that have been given to ex-Boston Consulting Group employees, things like that. Now, the ironic part here is in the past, in 2013, Danny Werfel was appointed to stop the weaponization of the IRS. But unfortunately, under Werfel's direction and under the Biden administration, the IRS has been weaponized, or you could say it has also been de-weaponized. An example of this, that it being weaponized under the Biden administration, is in 2023, the IRS initiated an audit of the American Accountability Foundation, AAF. It was a conservative watchdog organization. And when this audit was launched, it prompted a lot of concerns from senators like J.D. Vance and Mike Braun, and they questioned the political motivations behind the audit. And they also highlighted what I just highlighted about the previous administrations, notably the Obama administration, going after a conservative group. And as we all have experienced in the last couple of years, the United States Treasury is greatly overreaching in the information they want from us as taxpayers. Meanwhile, the ultra-wealthy and the high-wealthy, they are paying their fair share, but there are issues there that could easily be targeted through the same mechanisms that they are targeting small businesses and individual taxpayers that seem to not be utilized unless it is a case where they know somebody has been doing something wrong and they can weaponize that information essentially against them to either nudge them or blackmail them in some way to get something out of them that would benefit the current administration, unfortunately. So my current take on this pick is that you have a auctioneer from Missouri who was a past senator who didn't have a college degree, never graduated college, doesn't have a CPA license, does not have an EA license, is not qualified to do any tax law research, to put forth a legal opinion in the area of tax law. you've got somebody who is there to lead the organization and not get distracted by the legalese and the means of which you can use that legalese to go after your political opponents. Now, obviously, it's Washington, D.C. This is a new political administration. People in politics are going to politic. So this is not a guarantee that something is going to happen to where this person's going to get in there and then target left-wing organizations. But the sheer fact that this gentleman does not have this background, is not entrenched in what the right would call the swamp, gives me some hope that these one-sided targeted investigations where the law that the IRS is using, the Internal Revenue Code, is not being applied evenly across the spectrum, but being applied selectively to political opponents or against people who do not benefit the current administration, either in their current way of business, current way of conducting themselves, current way of talking about the current administration, current way of criticizing the current administration, or even people inside the administration or people that are close to the administration. So that could be business acquaintances, business groups, lobbyists. There's a lot of influence in Washington, D.C. And so when you're telling me that this gentleman right here is going to be the IRS Commissioner, I'm happy about it. I think that it is going to be a fantastic change, and not for any of the reasons that you would typically think for an IRS Commissioner, but I've explained some of my reasons. Now, to give you some further support on this, that this just isn't my own thinking, that this stuff has been going on and has continued to go on for quite some time, look no further than the House Judiciary Committee and their report on the IRS basically violating our civil liberties of U.S. citizens. A prime example of this was on the very day that Matt Taibbi testified before Congress, they took a unsolicited, unprompted field visit to his home. These very rarely ever occurred, if at all, and if they were to occur, there should have been multiple notices sent to Matt Taibbi before this occurred. This particular instance and how it was made aware to the Judiciary Committee and the circumstances surrounding it faced a lot of pushback to the IRS and to Mr. Danny Werfel. So much so that the only way to remedy this in the eyes of the Judiciary Committee and even of the IRS, because once you take away the trust in your organization and you're collecting taxes from us voluntarily, the only way they could remedy this was to revoke its policy of unannounced visits. The matter of the fact of our tax system is that 85% of people actually voluntarily comply with the tax code, meaning that they file their taxes and they pay their taxes. 15% of people do not in some way, shape, or form. So when you have an 85% compliance rate, that is incredibly high. And when you start doing things like this as either an administration or as the person leading the IRS and allowing this and not trying to go out of your way to make this very hard or difficult, or keeping a department's eyes on who is being targeted and what is being targeted and not just blanketly applying the law evenly across people, it's a threat to that. It's a threat to the 85% of taxpayers who are voluntarily complying. And the 15% who aren't, it seems like we are going way out of our ways to make laws that target them while inconveniencing the 85% of us who actually do pay our taxes. A prime example of this is the 1099 fiasco, where they want to know about $600 in Venmo and PayPal for everybody. You're not going to be collecting a lot of taxes from John who's out door dashing. This stuff is getting a little bit out of hand, and it's to the point to where the courts really need to start looking at this, and they need to start looking at the agencies. So when it comes to the power of these federal government agencies, they have been overreaching, and to the point to where they can be weaponized. Example of this, you can look at Chevron. The Supreme Court recently overturned that. I think it is a great ruling. It is going to make tax law and tax planning a lot more complex, because the deference that was given to the IRS and district courts is hopefully essentially going to be removed by this. And each district and each circuit may have its own analysis of the Internal Revenue Code, and it is going to put pressure on the IRS to really do their job, quite frankly, to hone down in the wording and to pressure Congress to actually get things correct and be concise. So you're going to be avoiding loopholes and you're going to be avoiding issues. And overall, it is going to make a more efficient federal government. But in the meantime, it is going to cause a lot of confusion in the tax and tax planning world, especially if courts start to hear more of these cases and people do not just keep going to tax court. Because of this blanket power that they've essentially been given with the application of Chevron since 1984, they've gone out of their way quite a bit to basically reinterpret prior administration's laws for the new administration's favors, and the legal counsel at the IRS is ever changing, and the way these laws are applied and interpreted are differing with every administration, which causes frustration for everybody, and you can see how this is ripe for weaponization. So again, Chevron is a great thing. It's going to make people more concise. There's going to be multiple legal minds now analyzing what the IRS is saying and their arguments, and hopefully between all of these great, brilliant legal minds across the different circuits and the lawyers that are operating in these circuits and the facts and circumstances that these people are having with their issues with the IRS, we're going to make a better America, ultimately, through a revised and more sound legal system. So I'm going to give you a few more examples of this overarching overreach and how the IRS has been used under the Biden administration, unfortunately, in my view and in many other people's view, as a weapon against political opponents or people they disagree with, or as a way to instill certain actions upon people that would possibly take away some of the pressure from these organizations. One of these in particular that stood out to me as I read about the nomination of Billy Long and what it would mean and why he would nominate him was the fact that I had heard that the NFL was going to be under investigation by the IRS in early 2024 prior to the election, which is very convenient. Here we've got a undercover video from O'Keefe Media of a gentleman who actually worked for IRS CI, which is a criminal investigation unit. So I want us to quickly watch this, and so you can get an understanding of essentially the mentality that is going on at the IRS in the past. Hopefully this isn't going on still. So here you go.
The National Football League.
And I'm going to put on my headphones for this just so I can hear a little bit better. The audio is really crummy.
The National Football League.
So last week, Doe decided to go after the owners of the NFL teams.
What? Yeah. We went after the owners of the NFL teams?
All of them. Yeah.
All of them?
Yeah.
No, that's crazy. He's saying that just last week. So this is, I'm assuming this was before the start of the year because O'Keefe Media reported this in February. And so this probably would have had time to process and all that stuff and for them to create this video and this content back in February. So before the beginning of the year, before the beginning of an election year, the IRS decides to go out of its way to target all of the NFL owners. All of the NFL owners, okay? This gentleman is from IRS CI, and he's on a date supposedly with somebody, and he's telling them this, and he's laughing about it. I mean, what does that tell you about the current state of affairs at the IRS when you've got this going on and you've got the report about Matt Taibbi? They are in a condition that needs to be remedied in order for the United States citizens to feel comfortable with their government. Let's listen to the rest.
Why did they go after the owners of the NFL teams, though?
Because they are like billionaires, and like they pay like very little taxes. So
But are they using legal loopholes to do that, or are they...
that's what we're gonna find out, if it's legal or not legal.
Okay, again, you've got IRS CI here saying that they're going after them because they're billionaires and they pay very little in taxes. And she asked the logical question, is that legal or not? From this standpoint right now, you know that they were targeted just out of nowhere because he said they're going to find out. I mean, seriously, what does this tell us all? You're going to find out if something was legal or illegal? I mean, you should probably have an instance to where you have a suspicion that something's going on, not you're going to go fishing. is essentially what's going on. Let's continue.
How many NFL owners?
All the teams, everyone.
Again, he's just saying they're blanketly targeting all the NFL owners.
Find like a mistake, like and we make them like pay like $100 million. That's a drop in the
They don't care about the money. They care about the actual media coverage of this, and they know that.
$1 million.
Alex Mena, who works for the IRS in the Criminal Investigations Unit, is distraught that he's destroying people's lives.
When I went to the Criminal Investigation Unit, the guy telling me like, well, the first person you shoot, you're gonna remember. But after that, you're gonna shoot like 100 people, you're not gonna remember any of them.
It's like he went into the army.
Most of the people in the Criminal Investigation Unit, they are veterans.
Are you Alex Mena with the IRS? Are you Alex Mena with the IRS, sir? Or is this you on camera, sir?
I mean, how would you feel if you were this guy in this position? You know you're doing something wrong. I mean, if you truly were going after somebody who's evading taxes, let's say you're going after the NFL, would you really just sit there laughing about it? Like, hey, we're going to find something on him? I mean, how would that make you feel to just randomly, blanketly try to figure out if somebody's doing something illegal or not, and you're targeting people because they are making a lot of money? Now, at his level, the IRSCI, he's probably not quite understanding what's going on, how he himself and the organization was being used there. But if you take a step back from the conversation, logically, they're on a fishing expedition. And if he's part of IRSCI, I mean, clearly the way he's presenting this, probably some of it's a little bit bragging rights to the person that he's out on a date on. But also some of it, there's some truth to it. And so that truth to it, when you compile it with everything that we know about Matt Taibbi's case, so when you tie that all together, and maybe, he's there bragging about it to the date or whatever he's on. I mean, how would you feel about that if you were working for ISCI like Alex Mena, and you're out on this date and you're talking about this and you're laughing about it, and this is your job? I mean, he probably doesn't realize that he was being used to some extent, but the way that he presented that and the way he was talking about it did not sound very sophisticated. It sounded more like a fishing expedition that was being done against the NFL. And so one might ask, well, why would they be on a fishing expedition against the NFL? And that's a logical question. And I think the logical answer is that going into a political season, when you have people watching the NFL and the games right around election time, when they're going to be voting, that you, as the controlling party, probably want to exert some pressure upon them to either not go out of their way to be political or to influence the election in some shape or form. You've seen this with the social justice programs that were allowed in the IRS in early 2020. And then when this season came around, the NFL was going out of their way to actually tell players to remove any political attire on themselves because they could not be captured in view of the cameras that were being ran at the NFL, that were being broadcasted on cable TV. You've got issues like the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce thing. And so you can only stipulate about why they would go after the NFL. But being that there is such a large airtime there is a lot of money. There's a lot of political donations that go on with the owners of the NFL. And this being a fishing expedition, one would say that there is probably some nudging, or you could call it blackmail, going on there to get either a little bit more favorability from these billionaires who own these teams and the other owners, or to get some, political benefit in one way or another. Now, I do want to make it a point to say that the people working at the IRS, I'm going to go with probably 85% or more, are actually fantastic people. It's the same case. You've got 85% of taxpayers voluntarily pay their taxes, 15% don't. I think there's probably maybe 15% of people at the IRS who wouldn't, care if there was a fishing expedition going on with the NFL if there were certain laws broken. The problem is that the IRS code, the IRC, is very voluminous, and at some point in time, all of us have broken a law within IRC. And if you're going to selectively apply the law, and you're not going to do it across the board, which technology should vastly, allow and accompany the IRS to do now, because most things are digital. That's where this gets, it gets weird. my favorite case this year of the IRS actually working and two gentlemen actually doing their jobs at the IRS, which, as I say, 85% of the people there are doing, is the Hunter Biden IRS case. You've got these two gentlemen here, Gary Shapley and Joseph Ziegler, that basically were conducting the Hunter Biden IRS investigation, and they were told to stop. They were told to stop their investigation, to pause it because the 2020 election was going on. And they have come out and said essentially that they have firsthand experience. And these two gentlemen are not right-wing. They are not conservative. They are left-leaning. They were part of the IRS, and they're saying that they have firsthand experience that there is desperate treatment of taxpayers by the IRS. And they have hurdles, and they've got different approvals for different, groups, wealthy elites. And, here's a case to where when the IRS is not malfunctioned with by the political administrations that control them or control the Treasury or put pressure on them, you've got their supervisor sending an email out after Hunter Biden's conviction to these two whistleblowers, congratulating them on a great conviction, which should be happening. And these people should not have had the pushback that they had when they were investigating this issue. You can watch this video and learn more about it. Here, this link, Catherine Herridge, I'll link it in the YouTube video below. But these gentlemen are still employed by the IRS, and they are still saying that the way they are being treated currently is horrendous, that they wouldn't wish it on their own worst enemy from some of the words that they have said, and that they are looking to still get these gentlemen out of the agency. But these gentlemen firmly believe in the IRS's mission, they firmly believe in the U.S. Constitution, and they firmly believe in the U.S. government, and so they are still there doing their job. Now, I will just watch a little bit of this video, but you can watch these gentlemen talk compared to Alex Mena from IRSCI on his date, and you can be the judge as to who you believe you want controlling the IRS, who you want working at the IRS. The contrast is pretty sharp here.
When you received this email from your IRS supervisor after Hunter Biden's guilty plea, thank you for your commitment to the mission, which culminated in a great conviction.
Those are words that are not supported by the actions of the agency.
What you're saying is that within the IRS, there is disparate treatment of American taxpayers.
What they call it is sensitive investigations.
But sensitive investigation sounds like code for powerful elite people.
There's a list in the Internal Revenue Manual that says what a sensitive person is, and it's exactly that.
There was no question in your mind the big guy was Joe Biden.
We corroborated that the big guy was Joe Biden, yes.
We knew that the laptop was real. DOJ knew that the laptop was real.
FBI knew the laptop was real.
There were a lot of overt investigative steps that we were not allowed to take because we had an upcoming election.
When we were doing the interviews, the prosecutors specifically told us that they didn't want to ask about the big guy because they knew it was Joe Biden.
You came forward as whistleblowers. Your information was accurate, yet you're sitting here today with us alleging that you've been punished every step of the way by the government bureaucracy.
IRS has a smothering blanket on me, hoping that I quit, that they find some way to terminate me or commit suicide or something.
And I'm up against a machine that has millions of dollars, that has the ability to fight me.
People have to have confidence justice is going to be administered fairly, regardless of who you are.
These people seem like they have conviction to do the right thing, that they did the right thing, and they look like they are warriors, that they went through a battle just to do their damn job and to uphold the laws of the U.S. Constitution, the Internal Revenue Code, and basically their job descriptions. Now, this definitely is not the first time that somebody has come forward from the IRS. There's a couple great books by Whitney Webb out there, One Nation Under Blackmail. They don't dive into the IRS being weaponized, but they do dive into issues of where people at the IRS had done an amazing job, and they've caught people and powerful people and doing, malicious things. Inside her book, she discussed how multiple state and federal probes led by an IRS agent called Bill Duncan in the Arkansas Police Department were halted under direct orders, and it was due to evidence that basically showed some stuff involving Bill Clinton and they prevented the prosecutions from occurring. She also talks about how organized crime, they basically conduct tax evasion. She explores the IRS investigating criminal figures like Leslie Wexner's associate Elvin Kessler, how he was taken to court by the IRS for failing to provide records from his construction company. And it basically goes into detail about how the IRS, when they do their job, they catch people who are breaking the law and they enforce the tax laws. And when that is stopped for some political benefit, some financial benefit for others, or some organized crime type of benefit, that's not good for the U.S. tax system because, as I said, 85% of people pay their taxes voluntarily. And if you got 15% of people who aren't doing it right and they're creating all the laws and complications and things for the 85% that are doing it right, the focus is broken and something needs to change at the IRS. I'm hopeful for this appointment, as I stated earlier. I think that it is a massive change because you're not going to have somebody in the position, if this gentleman gets in it, where they have a very highly technical legal background that can be used in conjunction with a highly technical agency to do malicious things. And I'm not saying Werfel, under his current administration, has done that himself, because quite frankly he has done an amazing job trying to modernize the IRS from that standpoint. But maybe that focus on the modernization took a back step to ensuring that the agency isn't being weaponized. So that is just a summary of my thoughts. For more on this, you can catch me at Jay the Accountant on X. This is what stirred this video. A person I followed on tax Twitter had commented about basically their confusion as to why this gentleman was picked. I do, from this comparison of who we've had in prior IRS administrations, it looks like a horrible pick because there is not the technical expertise there. There is not the legal expertise there. But from the standpoint of those of you who have owned a business, you know that a lot of times the best thing for you is to get out of the technical aspect of everything and focus on who your customers are and what they want from you, what they want from your business, and what they want from your employees. I hope Mr. Billy Long has that same focus, being a business owner, and I believe that the Trump administration is appointing him to rehone that focus into the IRS, to make it a more taxpayer-friendly organization, to take the focus off of the 15% of people who are not complying with their taxes, put it on the 85% who are, and then enforce the laws equally across the highest income tax brackets, because most of the taxes that are funding the government are paid by those who are making more at the top. Contrary to what is being put out there, business owners, small business owners, investors, billionaires, millionaires, they're the backbone of the federal system, and they pay the most in taxes when you account for income taxes, payroll taxes, Medicare taxes. And, a lot of us are confused on here on tax Twitter as to why this gentleman was picked. But again, if you ask yourself questions and you look at the clients you've had in the past or things that you've heard in the news, or you've talked to other tax professionals in the legal field or the tax representation field, you understand that IRS agents are humans and that they are subject to the same types of judgments we all make, and they have bias. And they do go out of their way to target people that they don't agree with or to treat them unfairly in some way, shape, or form. And so there should be some more checks on this. It's going to happen no matter what, but it shouldn't happen at the level of you having an IRS CI member discussing on a date that they're blanketly going on a fishing expedition to target all of the NFL owners. Thank you for watching. I'm James Yoke. I'm a certified public accountant from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I own a CPA firm called Corridor Consulting. Here, we help small business owners like you navigate the complex world of accounting and taxes. We're here to help you restore your time back into your business so you can focus on what's important, such as your customers, your employees, and your business. If you've got any questions about this, want to give me your input below, comment below, happy to answer and happy to reply.